Happy No Comic Book Day, geeks. Today we are back with the Strange Saturday Super Show, and this week, with Death by Sequel, we are having our first Strange Saturday sequel as we jump into Hack Slash. We are visiting the Land of Lost Toys and Slice Hard, the two main stories from the second collected edition of Hack Slash mixed in there. We're also a number of little trailers, they called them, which were like cute little anthology stories that just gave you a little glimpse into. I think some of them ended up being made into full-length stories.
We were talking about that last week, and I think you found that a couple had been.
Yeah. But the two that we're going to talk about are Land of Lost Toys and Slice Hard, and I figure we do kind of the same thing we did last time we talked about Hack Slash, where we go into one and then we go into the other. Do you want to start with Land of Lost Toys?
Yeah, that tracks. This is the first time that, there's real direct continuity between the two, arcs. We have the same main villain across, really, both of these miniseries, I should say.
So it was very exciting to see. And we have, and we'll jump into this as well, we have even more little grains of continuity as they bring characters back from the first volume to help. But to start off with Land of Lost Toys, in Mount Healthy, Ohio, children are dying in their dreams, falling victim to twisted versions of their own toys. It's up to Cassie, Vlad, and a 23-year-old toy collector to stop a demented dream killer before he turns playtime into a deadly nightmare. So this is creative team writer Tim Seeley, artist Dave Crosland, the letterer is Steve Seeley, and the colorist is Katie D'Souza. Jay.
Yes.
We liked Hack Slash so much.
Yes.
And that was mostly one-shots? They were oversized one-shots.
They were barely shorter than these, because those were 48 pages, and then these are I think 66. So it's
something
not
like that.
A huge difference. It's just now 3 normal-sized issues versus 1 double issue.
Yeah. But yeah, we like Hack Slash so much. It was so cool to read. Hence doing the sequel. How did you feel about Land of Lost Toys? Did it capture that magic that we loved so much?
I was a big fan of Land of Lost Toys. I really like this one. Can you repeat the artist's name, because I deleted my credits page when I had up
Crosland.
Here. I really like the way that Dave Crosland does the Hack Slash characters. I really, really like the way that Vlad particularly looks in this. I think it is such a good version of Vlad. I also like Cassie, and I like the way that the villain Ashley is portrayed, and he's portrayed in a lot of different ways, but his original
his
creepy
child young boy way,
is just real well done. So I was a big fan of the art in this one. I also think it's a really cool story. It's it's your dream slasher, so that's a fun slasher.
So your almost Nightmare on Elm Street-y type.
Yeah, and I also think Chris and Jason are a couple of the most interesting and fun, not side victim characters, I guess, whatever you want to call them, or damsel characters or victim characters, whatever. Obviously, Chris not being a full victim, but I really liked their dynamic. I really liked kind of how they played here. Chris was very funnily sad, and he actually gets a little arc where he becomes less sad by the end of it, so that's fun and something I'm not necessarily expecting out of Hack Slash, because they don't mind just throwing in a character who's gonna be that just kind of pathetic character that will help them and then will be left pathetic by the end. So that was a nice change of pace to actually kind of see him, because of his friend's death, which I think was just done really well in this story. To see him actually grow from it is just a little extra bit of being Hack Slash is kind of filling out and starting to actually really take note of even what's happening to the more minor characters. So yeah, I really like this miniseries. I thought this was really, really well done.
Yeah, me too. I thought that the big thing that I want to hit on with this, which was my favorite part, because as we all know, Vlad is my favorite character. We got Vlad's backstory in this arc. Also very well done. As you mentioned, I get them flipped. Was it Chris? Chris is the survivor?
Yeah, Chris is the survivor. Jay/Jason was the one who unfortunately was dream slashed.
Yes. hate being dream slashed.
But
yeah, so Chris is trying to like kind of be alone after Jay's death, and Vlad has been tasked with, protecting him. So in classic Vlad fashion, he's just following after him, and Chris is there's like this whole kind of motif of like wanting to escape the real world and escape life, and Chris is like, all right, Vlad, tell me a story so that I can like have escapism from these horrible things that are happening. And Vlad gives us his backstory, and it's so sweet. Like he has some sort of birth deformity, which is why his head looks the way it is, and he
like very Elephant Man-esque.
Yeah. And his bones like don't grow straight. But he's essentially adopted by this butcher who teaches him everything that he learns about the world, while also kind of keeping him hidden because, one, he is, deformed, and that there seems to be a sense of like protecting him from the world, but also because, he kind of stole a baby. The baby was in the trash. So, like, he dumpster dived a baby.
I just love the way you put that. I don't know if he stole him. Dumpster diving for the baby, I think, is a better term. He didn't steal him. To steal something, you have to, like, take it from someone. It was, it was in the trash.
But, like, I'm trying to think of a way so, like, he didn't formally adopt this baby.
Maybe
he found this baby and abducted, kind of. I feel like that implies even more of an active stealing. In any case, he extra legally acquired this baby.
Yeah, he claimed this baby the way one would a lost toy. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an incredibly emotional story.
Yeah.
The way that Crosland drew Vlad was so phenomenal.
Oh my
god!
Like
as just a young boy,
so far. Like I really, really like the way that Crosland draws Vlad.
Really great Vlad. This is, I think, my favorite hack slash art so far.
I agree. I think this was just phenomenal on every level. Like it had a level of depth that I don't think hack slash has really gone to before. Like hack slash has always kind of teetered on like the occasionally poking into the deep stuff, being like,
which is why we love
has
so
a few extra things going on, but like we're gonna focus more on the badass, sexy thriller stuff. This story really wasn't afraid to go a little bit more into the deeper parts of the characters.
Yeah, one of the coolest things I think about it, like one of this where like you don't physically go like woo, but you kind of emotionally cheer.
Yeah.
The way that Cassie ends up taking on Ashley, Ashley is the ghost of this child who was like a very selfish child, and he killed his younger brother, and then his mother killed him.
That was like
because his
but like to like a deadly level of like you take his toys and he will murder you.
Yes, he is the slasher, and he's like invading people's dreams and killing them with their toys. And the way that Cassie takes him out is so fucking rad. And like feels like such a blueprint type of thing of like she brings him into her dreams, like kind of baits him in as she wanted to, and her whole thing, we don't know it until it unveils either. We know that she is waiting. She is just trying to survive long enough for the way that her dreams always end to come up, which is with the moment where she killed her mother coming back. She relives it every single night, and I feel like that was one of the really, really amazing like depth moments in this book. And
it like gets tied together of like as much as we didn't like fully explore her origin again, we get to see it in the same story where we get Vlad's origin, so it is like that nice kind of connectivity there. Like this would be, I don't think this would be a bad miniseries to pick up as like your first time reading hack slash. Like I think
the only rough thing would be what I'm going to give it flowers for is bringing back Lisa from the very first hack slash euthanized. She was the like veterinary assistant. And she gets to come back, and it's like, oh yeah, we are creating this kind of like hack slash universe here, which is really, really fun to see happening. But yeah, the way that Cassie takes out Ashley using the fact that she knows that her mother is going to come into her dream, and then her mother will protect her from this thing trying to kill her. and then Cassie having to shoot her
Killing
again.
a slasher with a slasher, you know?
Killing a slasher with a slasher, and then Cassie having to slash her mother again. It was so good. It was so well done, that ending.
I really, really liked it.
Vlad's story was so good.
And Vlad just had like great on-page chemistry with Chris. Like, it was a really cool little relationship between the two of them.
Absolutely.
Because like Chris is weirdly similar to Vlad in the fact that he's kind of like all alone and a little bit sad and kind of he asks Vlad just to like tell him his story. He's like, you gotta have a cool story, and I need a story right now. And that being like the catalyst for Vlad's origin was a really cool way to handle it. And like I said, he gets to kind of end as a little bit Chris is a little bit less of a loser as he actually gets Lisa to go on a date with him, and that's like a nice little like bow on his story here. Who knows? Him and Lisa might pop up again at some point, but
I hope so, because I think it's really fun to have this like kind of cast of background characters. As we see Cassie, you know, I'm a sucker, so I'm like, oh my gosh, as we see Cassie build like a community for herself, like as she builds a support network that's not just Vlad, it's beautiful. My only gripe with this issue, I guess my big one, I'm sure that if I thought about it, I could have some other, yes, this miniseries, is I feel like we didn't get a lot of iconic Cassie with the bat. And when you give your character kind of an iconic weapon, you want to see them use it. And we didn't get it, spoilers, we didn't get it in the next episode or the next.
Yeah. And that one has a little less reason, because this one, I think the dreamscapiness of it kind of is kind of your explanation there.
I guess, but I feel like you could very easily have like her grab a Nerf bat or like just a bat in her dream. Like, it's her dream.
Yeah, but like, you know, I think the vibe is like, you know, if she had control over her dreams, or if anybody had control over their dreams in this like version, in this world, or in this you know, the way that this thing works is like, then the slasher wouldn't work. Like, you know, the whole plan revolves around the fact that she doesn't have control over her dreams.
But they are her toys, because she laments that she only played with boy toys because she was able to kill a stuffed animal very easily. But it's like He-Man and Thundercats
of the universe. Yeah. Thing going on there, which interestingly enough, Tim Seeley would go on to write a decent amount of Masters of the Universe stuff. So
that Tim Seeley, that heckin' Tim Seeley, he's he's
not writing the Thundercats series though, so clearly, you know, he missed out.
Clearly missing out. He's got a hole in his resume there.
Yeah.
But do you have any more thoughts on Land of Lost Toys? It was a good one.
No. I'll give the one thing that I always love to call out is just that I think Tim Seeley in Hack Slash always does a great job of just repeating everybody's names a bunch of times, which is nice for me, because then I know everybody's name.
There you go. And you know, now I asked you, and then I realized that I didn't hit on something that I wanted to hit on, because again, I love Vlad. I'm a Vlad stan. It was so wonderful, because again, the slashers attacking people in their dreams, and so Cassie has to dream to interact with him, and Vlad is not vibing with not being able to be there to help Cassie. Like, and it was a nice moment for Chris as well, where, you know, Cassie's in the dream, she's clearly fighting this slasher somewhere that Vlad can't help her. He like punches a wall and leaves the room, and it was like I think a really good, not subversion, but a really good test on their relationship, where it's like, oh yeah, we're looking at why Vlad is here, and he's here to protect Cassie, and he can't do that. And it was such a great insight into Vlad, watching him when he is powerless, because he's normally so very powerful. I agree.
Yeah, and what the thing that I really love about that, and maybe some people will disagree, is I'm a big fan of like the contingency that doesn't end up being necessary. Like, I like the idea that they have plans beyond what ends up being needed, because otherwise I'm like, well, what if that thing didn't work? I know it's like the opposite of Chekhov's gun, and some people would not like that, but I like the vibe of her being like, you have to be out here because if I fail, you have to be the next one to go in. Like, it's just that nice sense of like, we're not banking on this one thing that we don't know fully if it's going to work. Like, there is a backup, and that doesn't end up being necessary. Like, you might expect when that's said that then she'll fail and Vlad will have to go in after her. But that doesn't happen, and that's perfectly fine. But it's just a nice way to kind of round out, like, especially they're like slasher hunters. They should, especially Cassie, who's like, you know, very
and I think she does do that pretty often. She's very practical. She's very like realistic about the threats that she's facing.
She's very pessimistic too. So like the vibe that she's like, when I die, you need to be the next one. It just makes a lot of sense that she's not like, I'm definitely taking out the slasher. She's like, no, Vlad, when I die, you are the next one. So I just really like that. I think that's a cool thing. That makes it feel a little bit more real, and it makes the stakes feel more real because you're like, okay, no, this doesn't have to work because there is another thing. So now you're like, is Cassie going to die? Especially when she already mentioned that she died in the last story. And so she could die, and yeah, she'd probably come back. But, you know, it just makes the stakes feel really real. Yeah. So I really like that. It's a very small thing, but it's a very effective small thing, in my opinion.
Agreed. And like you said, I think that it does a lot of heavy lifting with showing Cassie's character. Like, Cassie is someone who is prepared for herself to fail, but is not prepared for her team to fail. It's like, yes, I might fail, but that means you have to go in and succeed. She's such a good character. Speaking of Cassie willing to accept that she might die, let's jump to Slice Hard.
Slice Hard.
Slice Hard. So the creative team on this one, again, writer is Tim Seeley. The artist on this one is Nate Bellegarde. The letter is Brian J. Crowley. There's actually a host of colorists. There's Andrew Dahlhaus, Chris Summers, Mark Englert, and Peter Safranis. And I think there were a couple of artist changes, but I don't have it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you didn't throw out, there were like a bunch of artists that worked on this, including Tim Seeley himself, I believe.
The
Tim Seeley, Mark Englert, Nate Bellegarde, Andy Kuhn, and Joe Largent.
Perfect, yeah.
Is the full,
the page of credits I had up only credited one artist, and the front of the collected edition just is like everyone, because it's full of all those trailers as well.
I was glad you have the single issue comics, and they have very nice credits for each of the stories, and they had I just remember that's why when you read out one artist, I was like, I remember seeing like a list on that one, so that feels not correct.
Yes, and you would be correct in that was not correct. But I'm glad that between the two of us, we can get all of the credits right.
Between the two of us, we can name everybody.
That's right. So Slice Hard, Cassie and Vlad are trying to trap a slasher so that they can kill her. They have a whole plan in place, but turns out the trappers are the trappees, as the man who they brought on to help lure a slasher to a place where they could take her out was actually luring them to a place where this corporation could take them out, this beauty cosmetics corporation. They're brought to the cosmetics lab, essentially, and learn that this company has been experimenting on slashers to try to crack the secret of immortality or not aging and stuff. Obviously this pisses Cassie right the fuck off, and she is having a bad time. They offer to give Vlad really extensive plastic surgery to make him into an absolute Chad.
I just knew you were going to say Chad there. I was like, yeah.
I'll have you know, I said of Chad. My good boy.
I did.
Here's the thing, I did love seeing handsome Vlad. I'm just like, oh my gosh, handsome Vlad. Look at him. It's like looking at handsome
The way they first showed, because it was on this monitor and stuff, I was like, did they do plastic surgery to him as he was asleep when they were knocked out?
That would be freaking wild.
Yeah. It's not until the end of the page where you get the could be Vlad.
This could be Vlad.
Yeah, I was like,
but that
I was like, what the fuck did you do to Vlad?
Why would you do this to him? He's such a good boy. But turns out having a bunch of slashers just sitting around, bad idea. Because Ashley, who after he was killed by Cassie's mother in the dream. His body was, or his soul rather, was transported into a teddy bear that is now trying to take vengeance.
At the end of the first miniseries there.
Yeah.
We didn't really touch on.
Which I didn't realize was a cliffhanger. I was just like, oh, that's fun. They're like leaving it open for sequel bait. And then I don't know how long it was between these two coming out, but I'm like, oh, they got me.
I didn't even think it was like sequel, but I thought it was just like the vibe of like, the slasher goes on. Like I thought, like that's what I thought it was. It's like, slasher's gonna slash.
Slasher's gonna slash, but he comes back right away for this story. Yep. And he has essentially broken out all of the slashers with the mission of kill Cassie Hack, because they're all slashers, of course, that Cassie has helped to put away. So dealing with the idiocy of these corporate people and the incredible threat of all these slashers around, the building is locked down and Cassie essentially has to fight her way through all the slashers in an attempt to save the rest of the survivors, who don't end up being survivors for very long. It's pretty rad. Cassie and Vlad, it's like kind of almost Die Hardy, where it's like all happening in one building. So you've got kind of like moving around in this static set, which I thought worked super, super well as an aside. But eventually they're able to take out all the slashers by essentially blowing up the building by letting a gas line out and then lighting a lighter, in a valiant sacrifice from the woman who was responsible for all of it, in a little bit of an act of redemption that then gets turned on its head at the very end. So Jay, that was a less elegant summary. I'm so sorry. How did you feel about Slice Hard?
It's interesting reading these two together, because I think they take just like both of the extremes of where hack slash can go. Like the first one was this depth, characters, all this development and more side character stuff. This kind of goes the other way of like, okay, just we're gonna go balls to walls action, bunch of slashers, all here, exciting, thrillery. I think it works really well, but it definitely is the opposite end of the spectrum, I think. Like even where like when we think we might start getting a little bit of depth, where Vlad's like, you told her, you didn't even tell me about the offer to like fix my appearance, and you're like, maybe you'll get a little bit of depth. Cassie's like, no, shut up. We're gonna not focus on that.
I actually really loved that moment, and I'd love to touch on it later, but you do your opening monologue.
Yeah. So like, I will say, I thought this series was a slight step back for Vlad after the last series. Like, it really didn't feel like in a premise that felt like it should have a lot of Vlad development, where like this offer is to make Vlad look, normal. I don't think Vlad he has a couple cool moments. And it's like, I think the first series where we see him like, we have seen him without the mask, but it's the first series where we get to see him like throughout the entirety of it without the mask, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't think he got a ton to do. I think that this was a much more Cassie-focused series, which is, fine, it's her book. But yeah, this was much more of an action-y one, and I think that the strength of this was just like the team of the slashers for the most part. Yes. Like that was really cool to see the one like Pinhead-esque slasher just being like, why would I fucking work with you? Like,
I think he was the one from the like beach issue, right? The like clubbing one.
Was he?
I think so.
I thought the beach one was like wasn't the beach? Am I getting it mixed up? I thought the beach one was the one that was like the religious one with the like woman with the man and the like that she was.
I thought he was the man in the closet. Am I wrong? I could be wrong.
I think you're wrong. I don't think.
I believe that I am wrong.
Because like I don't think that guy had an XO thing, if I'm not mistaken, unless they just decided to add that in for this.
No, you're right. His name was Father Wrath.
Yeah, okay. I was like, that I don't.
Where did this man come from then? Because I think all of them we had seen before, hadn't we?
Had we? Maybe I'm dumb. I mean, there was more of that, right? There were, how many of them were there? Weren't there 4 of them? And there's not been 4 hack slash stories before this, so.
In any case.
I don't think we had seen all of them. But anyway. Oh, there's also a really cool like X-ray kill that you can see with like that, and that was awesome. So
that was a really phenomenal. I just saw it as I was
flipping through, and that was like one of the coolest things. I did think this was a slight step down for Ashley as like an intimidating threat. Like I said, I think the team was really cool, but I didn't quite like Ashley as much as I did in the previous series.
He turned into a little bit more. He turned into a little bit more petulant child than spooky child.
Yeah, he had a very different vibe.
Yeah,
I feel like,
which I think might be just the kind of unfortunate effect of, oh, here's your like cool intro book. Now you're kind of like one of 6 slashers or something.
It's the and like so it's what you always do with like when they're villain versus when they become
literally
like
what I was gonna compare it to. Yeah,
like Winter Soldier, like as a villain versus when he's on the good guy side. It's just like you kind of get, except that he's still obviously on the villain side, but he has to be part of a squad, so he's not.
And anyway. He's not playing in his domain either.
Not his domain, no.
But personality-wise, he's certainly he was like a spooky kid before, and now he's more like a kind of, wow, I'm a kid trapped in a teddy bear vibe.
Yeah, there's like, he's not quite as terrifying. Like there was just something real wrong with him in the first series where it was like, instead, like, this is more like he'll whine about you taking his toy, whereas in the first would be like, you shouldn't have taken my toy.
Exactly. Though he does, 2 books strong, snap the necks of small animals. So he is consistent in some ways. And I don't think that it's that his character really changed all that much. I think it's just like we kind of said, when you're not the focus, you don't get to be as dramatic.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was like you said, this was a fun one because it's in terms of like the action and stuff. I think that it also had a couple of really great Cassie moments. Like you said, not really as much for Vlad. We get to see more flashbacks to her time at school before she like became a hacker, I guess, as opposed to a slasher. That didn't make any sense. It's not. It's unfortunate.
It would have worked better if hacker wasn't like already a word with a distinct meaning. Yeah.
Anyway, before she became a hacker of slashers, a hackist. There you go. And it offered some like nice insight into Cassie and like the way that she was growing up and stuff, and her relationship with her mom, which was, I think, kind of nice. Like, we see her mom being like, hey, don't listen to those bullies. You're nice. And then the reason that I liked that so much was because it came up later. Because it's like, oh, don't let the bullies call you ugly. And then Cassie and Vlad are sitting together when Vlad's like, hey, why didn't you tell me about the plastic surgery? And Cassie's like, well, it's like my mom always said. And you get that setup of like, oh, you're beautiful on the inside or whatever her mom had told her. And then Cassie kind of does a 180, is like, shut up and get the job done. And it's like, oh, that was a good Cassie moment, even though I would have really liked a tender moment between the two of them.
It just really felt like the vibe, and that's why I brought up that moment before, not because like there's anything wrong with it, but it just felt very much distinctly saying, this series is not one that's going to focus on like those deep, tender moments. Mm-hmm. Like, this was more of a like fun, exciting, so we're going to get a joke here instead of the like deep thing, which I think makes sense for the tone of this series.
Exactly.
It's interesting reading it back to back with the last series that was so much the other way. It's the two extremes of hack slash, which is
it really is.
For property
They're both fun extremes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I thought that the arc of Christy. Oh shit! I have the book right here. I can look.
The like pageant girl woman. Yeah, Christy's her last name though. I think.
Dr. Christy.
Yeah.
Her little arc is that she was a kind of disgraced Miss America type, and so she started this company so that she could change her legacy, and she seems still to be kind of like selfish and horrible as we're going through, because she like holds on to this slasher fluid that they had been developing, and then she even ends up drinking it, but she uses the power she gets from it to save Cassie and Vlad by being the one to hold off the slashers and light the building up. But then we get a really great stinger where the firemen are like outside and like, oh my gosh, the building's burning, yada yada yada, and then she comes walking out and like, oh shit, a survivor, and we see that it's her, and she immediately like kills this fireman or cop or whatever, and in an amazing bit of like just character design, she uses the police caution tape as her Miss America sash and like wanders off into the world.
She also rips flowers out from the ground and have like a bouquet.
Yeah.
And it's such a design with like a do not cross across the chest and like the zombie look. I'm hoping this is similar to the Ashley thing where when we roll into the next volume, like this is going to be one of our first slashers. I hope that's the
really hope so too.
I'm really here for it. It might be the best design of a villain slasher we've seen so far. I'm a big fan of this design.
I'm gonna agree with that.
I did quite like funnily enough, I like the design of the guy who you thought was back but isn't back. I like the preacher of the preacher guy.
Father, whatever his name is. Yeah. Father something. Father.
But yeah, this was real good.
Yeah, this was. I think that you really just absolutely nailed it with pointing out that these are the two extremes of hack slash, where one of them is like the depth of these two very interesting and damaged and heroic characters, and like it's always going to be interesting to look at a hero who kind of is mean. Like Cassie is gonna save everyone she can, but she's also a self-described mega bitch, and so like looking at the kind of way that a hero like that comes about is always going to be interesting. But then it's also just fun to see her being a hero in the way that I think that a lot of people like slasher movies to be fun, just by seeing people die and get murdered and get away. It's got that just fun action.
Die Hard. It was like a slasher Die Hard, which was really cool.
You know what? I actually do want to hit on that real quick. Was the fact that it was in that consolidated building, that like movement between floors, and that familiar set was so fun. Like it was just such a great setup for an issue. Like we are trapped in this building with a bunch of killers, and we both have to survive them and make sure that they don't escape out into the world.
And it made for like really cool resourceful kills. Like Cassie kills the like chef man with one of the vials and just like jamming it into his eye, and
which was another great visual comedy bit as the hibachi, because like it goes into his eye. We cut to him later pulling it out of his eye, and then Vlad immediately stabs him in the eye again to take him out. It was quite funny.
Yeah, with the like those
the like garden shears or whatever they were.
Cutter things. Yeah.
And then using the like cut gas line, because it's like for a Bunsen burner or something.
Yeah.
Using that cut line and then using kind of the lab equipment to blow up the place was also just like super cool and resourceful. Again, I could have used with her hitting someone with a bat, but I'll make do.
Yeah. No, it was maybe that's another, like, I said this one had less of an excuse. I'm going to give this one a slight excuse of, like, she was, like, abducted and then, like, in this place, so unless she found a bat, I guess it makes some sense. Anyway, I digress.
You don't just keep baseball bats in your science labs?
Cosmetic science lab, whatever, of course. But yeah,
I already have the word "kiss it" carved into it.
But I really enjoyed both of these series. I think Land of Lost Toys a little bit more, but it was Land of Lost Toys, or did I just turn it into that?
Land of Lost Toys, yeah.
Yeah, Land of Lost Toys. All right, cool.
Which is also the thing from Rudolph, if that's what.
That's why I was like, I was like, oh wait, was it actually a play on that? And I'm just going to the like OG thing. No, that's what it is. But yeah. I thought this was really cool. Hack Slash continues to be just a really, really entertaining and engaging series. And,
it really is.
It seems like next time we're back for Hack Slash, whenever that might be, it seems like we're going to be on to the ongoing era of Hack Slash. So that'll be really cool.
Hell yeah.
I'm very excited for that.
Me too. But I think that's going to take us to an end on this strange Saturday Super Show. As always, Hackslash is in fact quite strange, but in the very best of ways. Keep an eye out. We had an episode drop this past Wednesday with our regular, pull list rec and the such.
Yep.
And of course, we'll have one next Wednesday for you as well. We also have a partial live stream.
Don't go watch that.
Attempting to watch Hellboy together.
We had a bunch of issues with different versions and not being able to quite sync up. But honestly, more of you tuned out for that than we expected. We had a decent couple people tune in at various points that live stream. So thank you.
Shout out, including my mother. Hi, Mom. She told me the next day, she's like, I tuned in for you guys watching Hellboy. Like, thank you, Mother.
But yeah, we got to engage with one of you with some comic book questions. So that was really cool. And I think we're going to try live streaming again at some point, but for something that we'll have a little bit more control over. That hopefully won't get screwed up. We're still going to watch the Hellboy films. I think we're just going to do it in a more typical Script Heroes method where we'll watch it without you guys, and then we'll tell you our thoughts together. But what do we have next Saturday? What's our next bonus episode?
Next bonus episode.
We're screwing up our schedule for this month a little bit.
We are. Because of the release of Hellboy, we're going to be moving our tier list video back a week. So next week we'll be doing a mystery tier list. I guess, yes, up a week. Closer to us a week. And it's my week to decide the tier list or my month. And I can't decide yet. So we don't have the exact tier list plan, but it'll be a tier list next week. So get excited.
We have a big plan for a I guess not really tier. It started as a tier list idea. We have a tier list adjacent plan that should be going into effect. I think next month is our plan when we're going to do it.
Get excited! It coincides with the Absolute line from DC.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're real excited for that. We need to actually start really planning that this week probably. But that's really exciting. But next.
And hey, there may be a chance for you to participate. So get hype.
Get hype.
But that is all we have for you on this strange Saturday Super Show. We are such big fans of Hackslash. Mr. Team Seeley, I think you're so cool. And the rest of the writer, the creative team as well.
But hopefully we'll see you all next week. Comic Geeks.